So, Norwich City have left the Liberty Stadium, or certainly in the process of leaving, having picked up a 4-1 victory here over Swansea City, a game that I billed as being a really tough test for Norwich, because I was convinced that this Swansea side will come good if they keep on the coattails of the leading pack coming up to January. Graham Potter has actually noticeably held Norwich up as an example of showing patience in a model and in change, and the fact that it would then come good. And clearly he's been doing that with the intention of showing that it works for Norwich and that he can do the same here. And there was a lot of similarities in how Swansea were today in terms of how Norwich were last season as they sort of began their transformation under Daniel Farke. I think the second goalkeeper plays it short. Norwich's press robs the ball back, and Emi Buendia makes it 2-0. Classic case of Swansea just not being completely refined in what they're needing to do under Graham Potter. It's a sort of mistake Norwich would have made last season under Daniel Farke. It's most definitely not the same mistake that Norwich would make this season under Daniel Farke. The way Norwich are playing in terms of their structure, the way they are pressing, their organisation, their defensive line, and when they are fully focused, they are a fairly imperious team at this level, because they are ruthless going forwards with real movement and quality, and they are resolute at the back. The issues are occasionally they just drop in level, maybe lose their focus, or just, they're not concentrating, and the quality either with or without the ball just disappears. And you have to say, if this maintenance of form continues, they are likely to be their own enemy in terms of not achieving what they could possibly achieve this year, because the way they're playing, and we're well beyond this being just a flash in pan in terms of form. Clearly there's a degree of form to this, but the way they're achieving it is in good quality that looks rather ominous, because they are dominating sides in spells, and they are match-winning spells. Norwich have won all 3 games in November. They've scored 4 goals in each of those games. So that's 12 goals. They they now have, I think it's 10 wins, isn't it, in 12 games. Teemu Pukki has 11 goals in 17 games, 10 now in the Championship. And I've got to try and get in my mind exactly where the goals came. Norwich were ahead after 20 odd minutes, where Swansea had looked pretty good actually and kind of dominated the ball, but it's a kind of telling point that even though they were the better side with the better ball and Norwich scored against the run of play, Swansea didn't really work the goalkeeper. They didn't really push too hard. Some gents are waving at me up there. I'll give them, there they are, you probably can't see them. They're very happy singing Yellow Army, so good on them. Hope they say hello later. Yeah, although Swansea had the first 20 minutes or so, actually Norwich didn't really have much to deal with in terms of opportunities against, and even in that period had better sighters going forward, and that was how the first goal came. Teemu Pukki making it with a wonderful ball across the box that Van der Horn put in for an own goal. Norwich were swiftly 2-0 up from the Emi Buendia goal that I mentioned a few moments earlier, and it was 3-0 where later on in that first half, when again it was a Pukki ball across the box and Marcus Stiepermann at the far post slotted home. But the football Norwich played in between that and their shape, we've seen it. Probably the joyous fact of all this is we've seen it in other games. This is a trend. This is such a clear dynamic. And as I wrote in my 6 things before the international break against Millwall, people know what Norwich are going to do. There's no hiding. Norwich's game plan is laid bare. And in fairness, Swansea came up with ways in the second half that caused Norwich issues. But generally, teams know what's happening. It's stopping it that's the issue. And that's becoming one of the toughest things to do in the Championship. Stop Norwich playing the football they're trying to play and be successful with it. So, I mean, Norwich gave away a pretty sloppy goal just before half-time. They had a ropey spell there, and it came from a Tim Krul spill after Carl Norton's long-range effort. Likewise, none of Norwich's defensive line reacted to that, so culpable in degrees of equal measure, although Tim Krul shouldn't really be spilling that, despite the fact it was a greasy pitch and all those other factors. And from that point on, the crowd finally got into it, and actually in the start of the second half, Graham Potter made a double change, took Leroy Fair off, which made them more dynamic in the middle, pushed the wing backs far higher, and Swansea were able to play 1-2s and get around the back of Norwich's full-backs, and that was how they got their joy, and it may be something that we see other teams try to do, because it did cause Norwich issues. The fortunate thing is they were already 3-1 up, and when they went up the other end at one point, a goal made by Emi Buendia's wonderful raking ball, Anel Hernandez twisting and turning, and Teemu Pukki finishing, that made it 4-1, game over, game dead. So had Swansea maybe had more purpose as they had at the start of the second half, while it was goalless, maybe it would have been a different game. But Norwich still felt like they had a degree of control. They weren't at their best for spells, but when they were at their best, they were too hot for Swansea to handle. At one point before Leeds scored, Norwich were 5 points clear. Now, of course, Middlesbrough haven't played, but at the moment we know that Norwich are going to be 2 points clear at the top and 3 points clear of third, heading into the midweek games. It's a wonderful position to be in, and I think the good thing about today was we saw Norwich play like the team they are and looking like in the division. That is an important step going forwards, because leading from the front, you're going to need to continue to be relentless with your wins. You're going to need to keep churning those out. You're going to need to deal with the extra attention you're going to get in terms of teams wanting to knock you off your perch and prove a point. And of course, we've still got 28 games to go. It's a very, 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 very long way in terms of the Championship season still to play. The only real worries were injuries, actually. At one point, Emi Buendia went down in the second half. It looked like it was going to be a bad one. Stretcher was straight on. He then sprightly got up, which didn't really amuse the home fans. He did have an ice pack on his left knee, and the club is still it's a swollen knee. Daniel Farke said he's hoping that he'll be okay for Tuesday, but they don't know. Sometimes you can have a scan and things show up. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that it's all okay, but he didn't get stretchered off, which is obviously promising news. Likewise, Mo Leitner felt his back and then had an ice pack on his calf when he came off. He again is a player, probably didn't have his best game today, but he didn't have a bad game. And actually this is the point, players who were only maybe had a marginal influence in the game still had a very big impact in terms of the way Norwich were playing and keeping everything ticking over, and that's delightful, because Norwich are sharing the form amongst their squad. Marco Stiepermann was excellent as the game wore on today. Anel Hernandez was okay, but then chipped in with a wonderful assist for the fourth goal. I thought Norwich's defensive line were outstanding, apart from perhaps that concession and not reacting to it. And lots to be positive in all those fronts, really. No quibbles at all. Swansea will be interesting to see where they go from here, because I think they're a better side. Again, Norwich have won 4-1. I still wouldn't necessarily argue with Swansea being in the top 8 come Christmas, and then with a chance to push on come the second half of the season. That's how I see it, and that, I have to say, doesn't half make this an impressive result. So there we go. Loads more, of course, at PinkUn.com through the course of the weekend. I'll probably try and correct any errors I've made over the course of Sunday as well, so keep an eye out for that. And Paddy will bring you his Sunday brunch video. That will be on the PinkUn app. Keep an eye out for that. You may well see some highlights over on the YouTube channel and PinkUn.com and the Facebook page, but keep an eye on the PinkUn app for the full video, and you can download that in the Google Play and App stores. But for now, Norwich City have won here at Swansea 4-1. I genuinely didn't think I would be saying that. A 6th successive Championship one, and yep, they are still top of the league.